Welcome to Xscapers webinars. This is our first official webinar of 2018. And I'm really excited to welcome you guys also to our newest series called Making It Happen. The whole purpose of this is to help RVers who are either currently on the road or people who'd like to be an RVer very soon to get an idea of the options that are out there to help them finance their travels. For most people, we don't have the luxury of retiring with no need to work anymore. Whenever we hit the road, and so we want to make sure that we can do what we can to help you guys out. There's a lot of people out there who are, we sold I think it's something like a couple million RVs a year now or something like that. It's crazy. So there's lots of need out there. And I'm very excited to have Camille here today. I had the pleasure of listening to her give a speech at the Quartzsite Bash, at the annual bash for the Xscapers group, which is a group of our Xscapers RV Club members. Let me try that again. Some fantastic information there. And also she just recently, it was last week, right? Gave a presentation at the RV Entrepreneur Summit. So we've got I'm sure she's fired up and ready to go. And so will you take a moment, Camille, and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, and let me know if you can hear me okay. Is the volume good?
You're perfect.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. I was really excited, Georgianne, when you reached out to me. And I have a special place in my heart for escapees and escapers. I think you've heard this story, but just for the folks who are on the call, which I know many of you said you were coming on our Facebook page, so thank you for being here. Appreciate that. But my husband and I, Bryce, were on the road for, at this point in time, it was about 4 months, and we hadn't met any other RVers really out there. And then I found out about an Xscapers annual bash. This was back in 2017, and we hightailed it over there. And that's really my introduction to the Xscapers and the escapees in person. And I met all these great people and formed lifelong friendships. And so I have such a warmth in my heart for the resources that you guys provide, because it has helped me tremendously. I tell people that I probably would have quit RVing if not for this group. And I really mean that, because I was quite lonely on the road in the beginning. So this is the Making It Work, Earning a Remote Income. And I am Camille Attell. So here's my high-level introduction. So I am a full-time RVer. I've been on the road since August of 2016. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm a former corporate trainer. I've spent about 20 years in corporate training, although I did more in-person trainings rather than webinars and online. That's a little new for me, actually. But what I did in that role for many, many years is I helped people get promotions and raises, develop skill sets to go after jobs that they maybe thought they weren't qualified for. I've helped people get jobs. I used to work in the Welfare to Work program. I've helped hundreds of people secure employment. So I have a lot of experience in working in general and careers and job placement and development. And so now on the road, what I do now is I do content creation, I develop courses, and I'm calling myself a remote work specialist because I've gone through this transition myself, so I have a lot of personal experience, but I'm also drawing on my past corporate experience where I've helped so many people, and I'm actually developing a lot of resources on our More Than a Wheel In website. That's our site where we blog about our travels, but we're also developing a lot of resources on remote work, and I have a course coming out in March as well to help people find remote work. So that's a little bit about my background. And so just really quickly, why RV life? I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because there's a lot of people already on the road, and I think so many of you will relate to my story. I think it's kind of universal in a way. So my husband and I got married in 2014, and we had, a bit of a fairy tale wedding, which at my late age, I didn't think would ever happen. And then we went home. We were renting a house at the time, and after our honeymoon, the landlord told us that she would be selling the house out from under us. We'd literally just signed a new lease. And so we had 6 weeks to move. And in that 6 weeks, we got a harebrained idea that we should try to buy a house instead of continuing to rent. So we bought a home. I would not recommend buying a home in a 6-week time frame. We moved in. We thought it was beautiful. It's the one on the right here. And within a month of moving into that home, we had a slab leak. And that's where the pipes burst under the home, and we had a flood, and it wiped out all the walls, and we had mold, and so we had to move out. We moved out into a hotel for 9 weeks, and that's when my husband had a back injury, and he had to take a leave of absence from work, something he had never done in his entire career. I started getting sick. I had bronchitis and sinusitis and the flu over and over and over again for, really like 2 years. And so we just hit a phase of life where it just felt like, all we were doing was going to work, and we still hadn't furnished this house that had flooded after almost 2 years. We were tired. We were getting hit with illnesses, and we just kind of looked at each other one day and said, what are we doing? We're not really living. We're not really happy, really. And so we decided, we thought about all these different things we could do, and we came up with RVing. And it sounds like many of the people here had probably maybe not the same story, but have a similar kind of awakening, like, what are we doing? There has to be something else out there. But I will say it was very scary. We had been in our corporate jobs for like a really, really long time. We are not entrepreneurs. So I want to make that really apparent, because I think some people think, oh, well, if you're an entrepreneur, it's so much easier to find work. And that's not me. I've worked in a cubicle my whole life. Same with my husband. We've always worked for other people. We've always been employed. And so going out on our own was a pretty scary thing to imagine. So how we did our transition, and since most of your folks are already in an RV, I won't spend too much time here, but we're project planners. And so we did this whole big project plan. You can see the photo on the left is my husband. And we had this big whiteboard, and we did these sticky notes with major categories, and just kind of kept things on track week after week. And then we eventually turned that into a downloadable, a free downloadable called the Wanderlust Transition Plan. You can get it off our site, morethanawheelin.com/free travel plan. It's in our menu bar. You can go and grab it if you need it. And the process took us about 6 months from start to finish. It was super intense, but totally doable. And I'll tell you, Georgianne, we thought about everything. We thought about all the different aspects of RV life, except for one thing, and that was remote work. We did a lousy job of planning. And I think the reason for that is we just couldn't wrap our heads around what we could do, or like where we would find the work and what kind of work we would do. And so we thought, well, we'll use a little bit of savings and, find our way is kind of how we approached it. I would not recommend that. I mean, if you can plan early, you'll feel less anxious about it. And to be honest with you, I lasted about 4 months before I started panicking about income, because I did have savings, and I think that not everyone's in that position, and I feel very fortunate to have saved some money. But watching your hard-earned dollars just disappear month after month is a really hard pill to swallow. It's very uncomfortable, and it's just, I'm not built for that. I'm not built to use savings. I'm built to save for emergencies, not to use it for, RV life, right? So here's what I've discovered about finding remote work, because I've been at it now for over a year. So I like metaphors, and I like to use this metaphor called the remote work roundabout. This is something that I created in my training. And there's basically 4 main paths to remote work. There are more, but generally speaking, there are 4 routes that I think people can think about when they're planning. And I like to use a roundabout metaphor because I've found that remote work is not linear. It's not necessarily like you're in your home one day or even on the road and you find some great remote job and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is where I'm going to, stick my flag in and I own this job and this is going to be it forever. I think sometimes it takes a little while to kind of figure out what you really want to do and where the jobs are, and maybe they don't last forever. So I like to think of it as a roundabout, how you pull up into a roundabout. By the way, going through a roundabout in an RV can be tricky. So, you get on it, you maybe get off on one path and then you figure out, well, that doesn't quite work for me. Let me try something else. So here are kind of the 4 main paths. The first one is perhaps you can transition your current job. Now, this is not true for everyone. I realize there are some jobs that just don't translate as a remote job, right? Um, there are some companies that won't let you transition your job to be remote. But this is a trend that is growing. This is something that is more common today because of the internet and because of the resources that we have available to us. And there's another reason that people don't think about. Employers don't like to replace good employees. It's very expensive. And if there's a way to hold on to them, and if it still works to work remotely, they will. And so this is a lever that I think people forget to pull is, you know, if you like your current job enough, if you like the benefits or you find that it's creating stability for you, don't think automatically that you can't keep it. There are conversations that you can start having with your employer, maybe your boss, perhaps human resources, to see if there's a way that you can keep your job. I have a number of blog articles on our More Than Wheeling website where I interview people about how they accomplished this. So if you're looking for the nuts and bolts about how to do it, I will say, you know, plant seeds early on. Don't just show up one day in your boss's office and say, I'm going to work remotely. That doesn't work. Just start working towards it. And some people have told me they have gone out and worked remotely and not told their boss, like they've gone on vacation in an RV and not told anyone. And when their manager doesn't even know that they're gone, then they can come back and say, you know what, I was out for a week and you didn't even notice. And so you chip away. So that is one potential avenue. The next potential avenue is to transfer your current skills. So if you can't keep the job and you want to find something else, then take the skills you have and look for other things you can do. Maybe it's the same type of work. Maybe it's different. And I'll tell you where people get hung up here as well. Lots of people, including me, get stuck on a title. Like, for example, they identify with their work title, like I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher, so I don't know what else I can do. Or I'm an office manager, or, you know, I am a coder. I don't know what else I can do. And I like to help people understand that don't think of your title as your only opportunity, because you really narrow the jobs that you can apply for. Really think about your skill sets, because there are so many jobs where you can transfer those skill sets into something else. So as a teacher, as an example, and I know teachers. In fact, someone just wrote me today on our site and said, well, I'm a teacher. How does that translate to the road? Well, first of all, there are tons of remote teaching jobs on the road. I mean, VIP Kid is one. You know, this webinar is a style of teaching. You can certainly transfer that to the road, but other skills you have would be, you know how to organize lesson plans. You know how to plan an hour-long educational experience or longer. You probably know how to talk to people. You know how to write, depending on what kind of teaching you did. These are skills you can take into other types of jobs, like potentially virtual assistant or course developer or maybe project manager. So I tell people, think more broadly about your skills, because there are other jobs you can do on the road where those skills are needed. By the way, there are tons and tons and tons of jobs out there. I hear people tell me all the time that they're nervous about finding remote work. I'll show you later where you can look, but there is no shortage of remote work out there. I just want to plant that seed for people. The next avenue is developing new skills. So this is like, if you're, you know, I say if you're jumping into an RV and you are bold enough to live that kind of life, then you're bold enough to experiment and explore other job types. And maybe you don't think you're qualified. Here's another tip for you. Most people underestimate their qualifications. People don't give themselves enough credit for what they're capable of. So I say always apply to a job, even if you don't think you're qualified, because you can always learn it on the job. And employers are more willing to pay people to learn on the job if they're a right fit, as opposed to paying for someone with a skill set if they're not a right fit. So always apply, learn on the job, but you can always develop new skills. I mean, I heard someone say the other day that they will always be enrolled in the University of YouTube. I mean, you can learn like anything on YouTube. Like I said earlier, I'm a corporate trainer, but I've never done online training really until now. I mean, this is new for me. It scares me, but I'm learning how to do it. I'm learning how to do photography. I'm learning how to write so I can blog. So as you're doing other work, you can also be developing skills along the way as well, so that you can open up even more remote job opportunities. And the last avenue is starting a business. Now, I think this is a harder transition to make for people like me, because I've only ever worked for somebody else. I don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean I can't do it, because I am doing it. I am building a business. It's not natural to me. So that might be a little bit longer of a transition period for some people, but it is an option. So, you know, don't forget about this. And I have some resources for folks if they're interested. So those are kind of the four main categories. There are other options. I like to call these cost offsets. So when you think about remote work, you don't only have to think about, oh, well, what's the income I can make in a traditional job? There are other things you can do to start offsetting your costs at the same time as part of your overall financial or income picture. So I think everyone's heard about, you know, seasonal work like Amazon and beet harvest. I actually had someone email me the other day, and they're like, listen, I'm not going to go work at a beet harvest. So what else is there? And I get that. That is backbreaking work. I understand it's really not for everyone, but there's so many other things. There's festivals and fairs and events you can work. I know people who follow the carnival through different states, and they work 3 weeks on and take 2 weeks off. There's hospitality and tourism. There's work camping where you exchange your time. Sometimes you get paid. And memberships and boondocking, right? These are all things you can do to reduce costs. Now, I think I'm preaching to the choir, because as you said, there's a lot of RVers on here. So I bet I could learn some things from them as well. And I'm really open to other ideas. So, by the way, this picture is of me feeding a calf. I've never fed a calf until I became a full-time RVer. This is a work camping situation. It wasn't mine. I actually went and visited some friends. But I got to tell you, if you have a chance to feed a calf, it's pretty magical.
Yep,
so
I agree.
So I wanted to show people my very first job on the road. So I like I said, I took off in late August of 2016. By October, I was getting a little panicked about like, I don't know if I can really do this, like not working thing. And so what happened is we actually were stuck in Oregon. There were some big storms and we couldn't drive. We had some coach repairs and we were going to be grounded for 4 days. Like we couldn't go anywhere. And I'm like, I'm going to find a job that I got 4 days. I can generate income in 4 days. So I know sometimes I'm a little like, really? Can you really do that? I don't know. I'm going to try. So what I did is I went on Craigslist, and people forget that Craigslist is a resource. You can find part-time jobs. You can find temporary jobs. And I was like, what can I do for 4 days? I actually found 4 viable job options that I could have done in 4 days. The first one was a wine representative at a grocery store, a local grocery store. That was a weekend gig where I could pour wine and like taste people on the wine. The second one was I could relieve a caretaker. There was someone, an adult caretaker caring for their elderly father who had to go out of town and just needed someone to sit in. I would have loved to do that. It just didn't, the timing didn't quite work out. The third one was the one I actually wanted, and that was scooping alpaca poop on a farm. And I only wanted to do it because I love alpacas, okay? And then the fourth one was an acting gig, which is this picture right here. Now, I am not an actor, and neither is my husband. He's a financial analyst. But like I've done some community theater, so I saw this opportunity. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could totally do this. So I submitted a resume, and it was the acting gig was a 1-hour video it was like an educational video on how to be foster parents. And it was like a service video. And I was like, that is a beautiful, like, I want to do that. And that's the one we actually took. And we got paid $100. So, you know, it wasn't great money, but it also was 1 hour of work. And I tell that story not because I think people need to run out and be actors, but because if you have a little bit of imagination and you're willing to kind of like think outside the box and be a little bit open-minded, you can just find some stuff temporarily. And if you're going to stay in one place for a while, it doesn't hurt to just look at what's out there. And if you have that kind of flexibility, you can find some real interesting opportunities. So there's my claim to fame. I tell people I'm not an actor, but I play one in my RV. So it's my joke. not very
I
funny.
like that. I like that. It's a good one.
And so 10 months after that, this was now in August of 2017. This is in Bend, Oregon. My remote work situation had changed dramatically. So in this picture, at this point, I was pulling in 3 different income streams from jobs that I had found. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually writing a blog post in this photo. I do blog. Now, I had never blogged before. I did some blogging many years ago, but only for fundraising. I had never done it for myself or, earning income or anything like that. So I started a blog. I'm not going to talk about that here because I think that's a longer remote income timeline. But what starting a blog did for me is it taught me the skills I needed to then go get blogging jobs with other people. So then here I was working for 2 different companies, blogging, getting paid for that. That was one income stream. I started getting contracts to do online training. And again, I had to teach myself all the technology. That was really intimidating, but I did it. So I started earning income that way. And then the third way I started earning income is I became a Pinterest virtual assistant. So again, it was not challenging to find these jobs, but I did have to do a little bit of work. I had to take some risks. I had to learn some skills, but all really doable things. All of these things are doable. I'm a slow learner. So I feel like if I can learn these things, just about anybody can as well. And I have made some money off my blog. So we're just now in the monetization phase. So if somebody wants to ask me about that later or, in another forum, I'm more than happy to talk about that. So where do you find these jobs? Whoops. So this is a snapshot, and this is by no means exhaustive. You can find jobs on so many different websites. These are just a few. I listed some here for work camping. If you want to go work on farms and ranches, if you want to do some seasonal and temporary work, these are different sites you can go to. I know Xscapers, the job board, is not only seasonal and temporary. I know there are much more things there. But, if that's what you're into, you can find a lot there. For the remote work online, these are, again, just a couple of sites, but oh my gosh, there are so many, Georgianne, places that you can find remote work. One that gets underestimated a lot, and why I put a star by it, is Facebook. I have found most of my jobs on Facebook by old-fashioned networking, just talking to people, finding out what they do and where they need help, and offering skill sets or offering to learn to help them. And so, there are great Facebook groups out there where you can network with people, groups on remote work. There's the RV Entrepreneur Facebook site. There's the RVer Job Exchange site that you guys run. I mean, these are great places to connect and find work. So don't underestimate Facebook. And then if you do want to start a business, there are some great resources out there. Crazy Family Adventure, that is Brianna Royal, full-time RVer, was never an entrepreneur and now runs a full-on business from the road. And she travels with 4 kids, a husband and a dog, and a 23, actually they just downsized to like a 20-foot travel trailer. So, wow. And then other resources where you can find work is on Pinterest. If you go to Pinterest, which people seem to not understand it is a search engine like Google, and you just type in words like virtual business, remote work, working from the road, you will get so many pins with all kinds of ideas and opportunities. So don't underestimate Pinterest. It's not just a place to find recipes. That's what people always tell me. I go there for recipes. Yes, but there's so many other things on Pinterest. But if you want a more exhaustive list, we do offer a list on our website called 21 Remote Work Websites. It's a free downloadable resource, morethanawheeling.com. You can find this in different articles that I've written on remote work. One in particular that people seem to like a lot is called 6 Ways I've Made Money Since Leaving Corporate America, because I go through some of the jobs I've had, and then connected to that is a downloadable. So people can take that freely. And so that is it in a nutshell for remote work. I know I ran through a lot of different ideas, but I think that was the point of today's webinar, is just if you're thinking about remote work, I just want to leave you with this. It is totally possible. It is totally plantable. There are so many jobs available, and I want people to have the confidence that you have transferable skills. Don't underestimate your skills. You can learn on the job. You have more qualifications than you realize, and just keep an open mind about what types of work you can do, and be open and be willing. And I guarantee you, you will be able to find income that can support your travels. And I just want to thank everyone again for having me, and I will turn it back over to you, Georgianne.
All right, awesome. Well, great job, Camille. That's tons of information. I'm impressed you packed that in like 20 minutes. Great job. Definitely take a couple more sips of coffee. Okay, so one question we already have from Bob is, if you have a blog or a website, how do you earn income by linking to other sites? There's a follow-up I'll add. I'll give you a chance to
Okay.
first.
Yeah, and Bob, thank you for asking. I don't want to belabor the whole blogging thing because it does get technical, and I know that's not everyone's interest, but your question is actually two questions in one. How do you earn income? And then how do you do that linking to other people's sites? Linking to other people's sites is not the only way. You can earn income in all sorts of different ways. You can sell products from your site. You can sell other people's products from your site, which if you're new, that's a great way to earn income quickly, is by promoting other products, either digital or physical. You can earn some money from ads. You can earn money by being sponsored, like if someone pays you to write a sponsored post. One of the best ways I think to earn money from a blog is to leverage it for other work, like I've done. I had a blog, I didn't make money on it for months, but other people saw that I knew how to write. So they hired me to go work on their blogs. So it's kind of like a fancy business card in the beginning. It's like a real dynamic, multi-paged business card to show your work. So I know I answered that really quickly, Bob, but feel free to shoot me an email, or I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one about that.
Well, another question he has to follow up with that is, how big would you think that your volume would need to be? For his example would be to earn enough to buy a Big Mac or something like that. Like what kind
A
of
Big
work?
Mac? Like a sandwich?
I think the bigger question is like, what kind of volume would you expect
Oh,
to put up on your site
well,
to earn money off of it?
yeah. So again, I almost want to separate the questions. I mean, volume on a site is one way to earn money, and you do that if you have ads, right? If you have a lot of traffic. I don't do ads, but I will tell you this, Bob. I was able to buy a Big Mac, like, I don't know, within the first 4 or 5 months, because I sold a friend of mine's book, Liz Wilcox, Tales from the Black Tank, and I made like $5 off my first sale. So I could have bought like 3 Big Mac. Well, I don't know how much a Big Mac is. I could have bought like 5 $1 burgers. Let me put it that way. But just in contrast, there are people who make millions of dollars blogging. Now, they've been at it a long time and they know what they're doing. And so, you run the spectrum from people who make dollars, a few bucks every month, few $100 every month, few thousand every month, up to people who make hundreds of thousands every month. So I encourage anyone who's really interested in this to email me, because I have some resources that can really help. It's a whole subject unto itself.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of email, can you throw that out there real quick, and I'll go ahead and also end it here in the chat screen.
Yeah, I think the safest one, because we're trying to set up a new email and it's not working, is use Camille, my first name, at CamilleAttell.com.
All right, there we go. In case you guys want to go and send her something directly after our webinar here. And if you guys have any other questions, again, don't hesitate to put them into the chat screen or the Q&A tool. We'll make sure we get those answered. Well, you brought up some of the ideas about remote work and that sort of thing. When you said you found some of your jobs on Craigslist and you've also made some connections through Facebook, do you have any other, even like stories you've heard from other people or things like that, where maybe like Instagram has been a resource, or LinkedIn? Has that been any help to anyone that you know of?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. People talk about like, well, which social media site should you be on if you want to like grow your brand or whatever, and the answer is like wherever it works for you. And it's kind of the same with remote work. It's like any of these sites can work for you. Now, Instagram, I've never heard about remote work on Instagram. I have heard of sponsorships. So like if you're trying to grow a brand, like Astro RV, I'm making an assumption. I don't know what they're trying to do. But like, let's say more than a Whalen, or trying to think, who else do you guys, you work with like RV Outlaws, or Trinkles on Tour. And so like, if you're trying to get attention from people you want to partner with, you know, you might be able to get product or get some sort of sponsored post. But in terms of remote work, I think sticking with more remote work sites like Upwork is an example. I know lots of people who have found jobs on Upwork, or Fiverr if you want to do some freelance work is another one. But there's flex jobs. Flex jobs is where you can find more traditional long-term work. Facebook, again, is a great place to network. I mean, Indeed is another one. Snag a Job is, I mean, there's just so many. I can't say, oh, this one's better than that one. I think the key to success is you. You can go into any of these platforms, but if you don't know how to promote yourself, or you're nervous about that, or you're afraid to do that, well, yeah, you probably won't find as many opportunities. So that's why I always encourage people, always apply. Don't hesitate on that. And highlight your skills, and not just what you're good at, but what you're like even okay at, or like what you want to learn, or what you love to do. Just put yourself out there, let people know what you're interested in, ask for work. I always ask for work. That seems to work for me.
Yeah. And even a little personal anecdote, which my bosses may be watching, so maybe I shouldn't share this, but actually when I started with the Xscapers, I started as an intern, and I was finishing a degree in communication, not in marketing, and I hadn't really had a lot in the way of business classes. And so what I did during my internship is I proved that I wanted to learn, and I absorbed as much information as I could, read as many things as I could find, blogs, watched videos, even just would send questions nonstop, useful questions. If I could find the answer somewhere else, I would ask. But to my supervisors and my team while I was interning, and just constantly kept learning and was proving that I was willing to learn and get used to this industry and get to know what I needed to do, and haven't stopped since then. And I think that was a big reason why they decided, well, hey, like, you may be lacking in some areas, but we'll give you a shot. And I'm now actually employed, and I love my job. I mean, I get to go play in the desert a couple weeks ago, guys. I can't complain about that.
Yeah, it's a good time, and congratulations on getting that job. I know you worked hard for it and you earned it. So good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So it's like Bert has a question. What do you recommend to stay connected while on the road? I'll let you go ahead and answer first, but I have some more information to follow up with on that as well.
And I'm assuming, Bert, you're asking about internet, and if I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I'm literally going to defer to Technomatia, because I know that right, that they're going to be talking. Did they already talk? No, they did, right?
Actually, theirs is next week, I believe. Let me check my calendar.
Oh, it's next week. I couldn't remember the day, but I know they're talking, and they are going to give you way more depth and well-researched information than I ever could. I'll be watching their webinar. But the short answer, so you don't have to wait a week, Bert, and I hope you're feeling better, by the way. I know he wasn't feeling so great, but the short answer, Bert, is you need duplicate plans. So if you have, you know, Verizon, then you need AT&T as a backup. Some people even add T-Mobile. Some people add boosters and Wi-Fi. It just depends on what work you're going to do and how connected you need to be. That's like the shortest answer I can give you. I have Verizon Unlimited. I have a WeBoost, and I get by, but it is not sufficient for the type of work I'm doing, because now I'm doing webinars and I'm doing a lot of content. So the upload and download is becoming more critical. So I'm going to have to get some backups.
And to add to what she said about Chris and Cherie, yes, they actually, Technomatia is their personal blog, and then they've turned a lot of their experience into a business with, I think it's called Mobile Internet Resource Center. And they'll be doing a webinar with us next week on the 7th, actually. And they also did one with us last year that has a little bit more information in it. Keep in mind, with things like that, information changes when it comes to internet and technology pretty quickly. So we do have a webinar on our YouTube page, Xscapers RV Club YouTube page from last year, but they're going to give us some more updated information next week instead. And we've got a couple questions both on Zoom and in Facebook about that very topic. So tune in next week. So another question is RV sites versus off-grid, which I think means boondocking. Like, what are you currently traveling, and which do you prefer camping style-wise?
Yeah, we do a little of both. We are in a Class A gas motor coach, 34 feet. It is equipped to boondock. However, we've had some electrical issues. I don't even know if electrical is the right word. We've had some generator / battery issues, and our boondocking boondocking ability has been compromised. So like 5 days max, and where things get real dicey. We should do solar. I would really love to do solar. We're kind of looking at the costs of that right now, but we love both. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm in a real fancy park right now, Jellystone in Fredericksburg, Texas. They've been awesome, by the way. But they've got a pool and a jacuzzi and real nice showers and full hookups. They even have cable TV, and I feel like I'm living in a palace. I mean, and that's nice.
That big bounce pad looks pretty fun.
And the bounce pad is a blast, let me tell you. I even burn calories bouncing on that thing. But nothing really can be a beautiful boondocking experience. I mean, and I've done a lot of that in the last month because we did the Xscapers annual bash in Quartzsite and American Gold Mine. I also got to link up with a bunch of awesome friends. Some of them are watching right now. Hello, guys. In Anza Borrego State Park. I mean, just gorgeous, beautiful, scenic, wide open spaces. This is really hard to beat. So I like both. I would say though, 70% of the time we're probably in a park, which, you know, I'd like to shift that a bit and do more boondocking.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Dolph has asked, have you traveled into Canada, and what challenges do you find traveling north when it comes to doing business?
Oh, wow. Did you say Dolph?
Mm-hmm. DOLF.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, Dolph. I have not gone to Canada. We thought we were going to go last year, and instead we went to Oregon to watch the solar eclipse with all of you guys. It was awesome. But we haven't been to Canada, so I cannot answer that question. I know people who have, who are better equipped to answer that. And when he talks about work, it's hard for me to know what the angle is on that. Like maybe that's an internet question, or maybe it's a finance question. I don't have enough information, so I'm really sorry. I can't answer that for you. But somebody else can. I know that. Somebody else will find that person.
Yeah, I know Stacy and Gary Quimby traveled to Alaska and did a lot of documentation of their travel, and they drove through Canada in order to get there. They didn't do the ferry, and they did quite a bit of write-up about internet and cellular service once you cross the border, and the things you can do, things you do watch out for, the options you can have. Cool. If you need to stay connected. And so that'd be a great resource to look up, would be Stacy and Gary Quimby.
Yeah.
And their blog is Pauhana Travels. I think it's PAUHANA Travels.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like that's all that we have for questions at this point, unless anybody wants to pop anything in the last few minutes. But thank you so much, Camille. I appreciate you taking the time and the bandwidth to join us today. I know it can be a struggle when you're traveling. I appreciate you giving that up and sitting inside for a few minutes instead of playing in the sunshine.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate, again, just talking to this community. And yeah, I hope to cross paths with folks on the road.
Awesome. And you want to talk a little bit more real quick before we leave? You have your remote work website pulled up, and you want to talk about those, one more reminder before we sign off?
So there are two resources that are free on our site. One is this 21 remote work websites connected to a blog post called 6 Ways I've Made Money Since Leaving Corporate America. And there's another one I mentioned early on in this presentation called the Wanderlust Transition Plan. That's broader, about kind of like a project plan for transitioning to RV life. And then in March, I have a course coming out on finding remote work. And if you download this thing that you're looking at here, you'll get on my list if you're interested in that, and you'll just get some updates about it. So yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And speaking of more information coming up, next week, like we said earlier, we have the webinar with Chris and Cherie. It'll be talking about finding options for staying connected remotely with the internet, as well as they're going to share a little bit about how they took their corporate experience and turned it into a business that travels with them. And I'm really excited to hear more about that. We also have some photography information from Bill Trinkle coming up in a couple of weeks. He's going to talk about his experience with photography and how he's turned something that's just kind of a fun thing to play around with into, I mean, he's got some fantastic work that he does now. And we're also going to share a little bit about how you can possibly turn your own hobbies into income towards the end of that one. And then later this month, we have Tim Ewing, who is a CPA. He is also a full-time RVer, and he's going to talk about how you can earn income or sorry, not how you can earn income, how you can manage earning income as you're traveling from state to state. If you aren't already familiar, there's a lot of different ways that states handle their state income tax. And in some cases, if you spend more than a certain number of hours in a state, you're actually required to pay them income tax and things like that. So he's going to talk more about that from his experience, as well as from his the CPA standpoint, and give you some more information on that, so we can all stay legal and not have taxes sneak up on us. And there are, I think, a few more coming down the line that are still being scheduled. So we've got quite a bit more coming ahead this year. All right, well, I appreciate you guys joining us today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days, and we'll see you in a few.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.